Have you ever wondered why even the greatest, most powerful civilizations eventually just disappear? Well, today we're going to dive into one of history's most fascinating and honestly most predictable patterns, the life cycle of an empire. It's a story that seems to play out again and again, which really brings us to the central question of this whole explainer. Why? Why do all great empires fall? Because you see, before the fall, there's always the rise. Every single great power, from ancient Egypt all the way up to the modern era, has its moment in the sun. You know, that golden age, where its influence, its wealth, and its power are at their absolute peak. And this is not some new phenomenon. I mean, look at this timeline. This pattern is ancient. We're talking the Egyptian New Kingdom, over 3,500 years ago. We see it with the Roman Empire at its height, the vast Mongol Empire, and yeah, even the much more recent British Empire. It's a cycle that literally stretches across millennia. So what's the secret sauce? What are the ingredients for that kind of greatness? How does a nation even become an empire in the first place? Well, let's break down the three common pillars that seem to build every great empire. First up, and this one is probably the most obvious, is just overwhelming military might. I mean, it makes sense, right? You can't build an empire if you can't conquer territory or at least defend what you already have. And military power can look totally different depending on who we're talking about. Just picture the unstoppable cavalry of the Mongol Empire sweeping across all of Asia, or the disciplined Roman legions that basically conquered the known world. We see it in the terrifying army of Korea's Goguryeo Kingdom, which fought off massive invasions, and even the 17th century Swedish Empire, which became a superpower through pure military innovation. But hey, it's not always about swords and shields. The second pillar is commercial dominance. Controlling the flow of money and goods can be just as powerful as controlling the biggest army on Earth. For instance, the Tondo Kingdom in the Philippines was an incredibly rich trading hub long before the Spanish ever arrived. The Dutch Republic? They pretty much mastered global trade routes in the 1600s. Carthage became a naval titan just by controlling commerce in the Mediterranean. And the Mali Empire in West Africa was built on the ridiculously lucrative trade of gold and salt. And finally, we've got the third pillar, cultural and technological achievement. You know, sometimes an empire's greatest legacy isn't what it conquered, but what it actually created. Think about it. Korea's Joseon dynasty gave the world the brilliantly efficient Hangul alphabet. During the Abbasid Caliphate, Baghdad was the undisputed center of the world for science and medicine. The Achaemenid Empire in ancient Iran built a revolutionary road and postal system. And of course, the Egyptian New Kingdom, well, they left behind monuments that still inspire awe thousands of years later. Okay, so an empire builds its power through military, economic, or cultural strength. It reaches that golden age. But then the decline begins. So now let's explore the seeds of that seemingly inevitable collapse. When we really look at why empires fall, the causes usually fit into two big categories. It's either a fall from the outside, a fatal blow from an enemy, or it's a collapse from within, where the empire essentially just rots from the inside out. Let's start with those outside forces. Man, history is just filled with these dramatic examples. Kievan Rus was completely destroyed by the Mongol invasion. The mighty Inca Empire was brought down by just a handful of Spanish conquistadors. The Khmer Empire fell to its neighbors, the Thais, and the vast Achaemenid Empire was famously conquered by just one man, Alexander the Great. But so often, the fatal blow actually comes from within. China's Qing dynasty, for example, was hollowed out by corruption long before outsiders became a real threat, making it a fragile target. The Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth was paralyzed by its own political infighting, which made it easy prey. The Soviet Union wasn't invaded, it collapsed under its own economic weight. And the Austro-Hungarian Empire simply shattered from the pressure of all its competing nationalist movements. So what does this all mean? When you zoom out and look at the big picture, you see it's not just a series of random events. It's an unbroken cycle, and it's a really powerful lesson from history. We can basically boil the entire story down to this simple three-step life cycle. First, you have the rise in power, where an empire builds its strength. Second, you get the golden age, where it reaches its absolute peak of influence. And third, the decline and fall, where those external or internal forces bring it all crashing down. It all really comes down to a simple, universal truth. From the Roman legions to the Spanish galleons, from the Mongol hordes to the British Navy, the story is the same. What rises must eventually fall. This isn't some kind of anomaly. This cycle of birth, growth, and decay appears to be one of the few true constants we can see repeating over and over again throughout all of recorded human history. Which leaves us with one final, big question to think about. If this pattern has held true for thousands of years across every continent and every culture, does history truly repeat itself?